All right, today we're diving into the story of a foundation that's doing something pretty extraordinary. They're going out into the most remote corners of India, finding these brilliant hidden minds, and basically transforming them into the country's next leaders. So, how on earth do they do it? Let's get into it.
Okay, let's just start at the end with the results, because they're mind-blowing. And it raises a huge question. How does a student from a tiny, remote village with almost no resources end up in the V-suite, working at a powerhouse like Goldman Sachs or Microsoft? It seems impossible, right? Well, the answer really begins with stories, just like these.
So, take Abhishek Kumar. He comes from a really humble background, manages to get into IIT Roorkee, one of India's absolute best engineering schools, and then, bam, lands a super competitive job at Goldman Sachs.
Or how about Yash Pajavani? He gets through the legendary IIT Bombay, and now he's at Microsoft.
And look, it's not just about big tech or finance. Meet Lakshmi Priya Prusti. She's now a scientist at ISRO. Yeah, the Indian Space Research Organization. I mean, she's literally helping fuel India's race to the stars. And we've got Darpan Rupelia, another IIT grad, this time from Kharagpur, who also landed at Goldman Sachs. I mean, these are just unbelievable success stories. But to really get how incredible they are, we have to rewind. We have to go all the way back to the beginning. Because these journeys, they almost always start with just immense hardship. Behind every single one of these success stories is a backstory packed with challenges you can barely imagine. The talent is there, absolutely, a diamond in the rough. But the opportunity, it's just nowhere to be found. Let me give you a real example. There's a student named Muskan. When she was just 10 years old, her father was paralyzed. Overnight, the family's income just vanished, gone, and there were 7 mouths to feed. Her older sisters had to learn tailoring from YouTube videos just so the family could scrape by. That's the level of adversity we are talking about here. Now, Muskan's story, that's just one of millions. So it begs the question, right? With so much brilliant talent out there, buried under such impossible circumstances, how in the world do you even begin to find these hidden gems? Well, that's where the Dakshana Foundation steps in. They've created this incredibly focused and powerful system to find and nurture exactly this kind of potential. So what is Dakshana? Well, their entire mission is to build a bridge across that huge gap between brilliance and opportunity. What they do is they find these incredibly gifted students from families in poverty and give them world-class intensive coaching for exams like the IIT JEE and NEET. You know, the ridiculously competitive exams that are the only way into India's top engineering and medical schools. And here's the most important part. They do it all for free, completely free. And their method, it's actually beautiful in its simplicity. Step 1, find the gifted. Their outreach teams literally travel hundreds of kilometers to find students in the most remote schools. Step 2, provide elite coaching. These scholars get the absolute best preparation for some of the toughest exams on earth. And step 3, make sure it costs nothing. 0. The whole program is free. No hidden costs, no strings attached. But, just because your mission is a good one doesn't mean it's going to be a smooth ride. Not at all. The foundation has run into some massive obstacles that have frankly threatened its very existence. So one of the first big hurdles was, believe it or not, just getting schools to listen. Can you imagine this? You travel for days to get to some remote school, you're there to offer a life-changing, completely free scholarship, and they turn you away. They say, no thanks. Apparently, it happens all the time. It's just a crazy reminder that even when you're trying to give away something incredible for free, it's still incredibly hard work. But that persistence was really put to the test when the foundation stared down a massive funding crisis. Their whole philosophy became hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And trust me, they were going to need that plan. So here's what happened and how they had to pivot fast. Before the crisis, more than 2/3 of their money came from outside of India. Then, suddenly, that funding was cut off, just gone. They had to go on what they themselves called a war footing. The team in India had to scramble, basically from scratch, to build a whole new network of corporate donors inside the country. It was a literal fight for their survival. And guess what? They survived. And the results of all that grit and persistence, well, they really do speak for themselves. The numbers are just staggering. Think about this. Over the years, they've fully supported 276 endowment scholars. Now, that's not just a number. That's 276 lives that have been completely, fundamentally changed. Every single barrier to their education, gone. And they're not slowing down. They're scaling up. This year alone, 355 Dakshana scholars sat for the NEET exam. We're talking about one of the most competitive medical entrance exams anywhere on the planet. So how'd they do? Well, the results are just wow. Get this. From just one of their centers, Dakshana Valley, an incredible 70 scholars are expected to be offered a seat at an AIMS institution. That's India's version of Harvard Medical School, the absolute pinnacle. A success rate like that is it's almost unheard of.
But the story doesn't stop with these amazing individual achievements. It's bigger than that. The impact this foundation is having creates this incredible ripple effect, you know? It starts lifting up entire communities and basically creates a roadmap for how to create change.
Just look at what happened in Kudus Village, which is where their main campus is located. Dakshana decided to pay for a local teacher there. Now, before they showed up, not a single student from that village had ever gotten into the prestigious JNV Pune school. Not one. Since 2020, 15 of them have been accepted. And since 2022, another 16 have gotten into elite Sainik military schools. You see what's happening? They're not just changing individual lives. They are fundamentally changing what an entire community believes is possible.
And that really brings us to the final big question here. When you see a student like Muskan completely defy the odds, or when you see an entire village start to dream bigger than ever before, you just have to ask yourself, what is the true value of unlocking human potential? What's the real return on that investment? The answer might just be infinite.